In Hillsboro at 221 WSUN. In Pinellas, 576 WSUN. All other areas, 1-800-356-WSUN. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the advertisers, staff, or management of AM 620 WSUN. Entertaining talk radio for the 90s.
Hey, kids, gather round. Haywood's got a little song for you here. Oh, I just got a message from old St. Nick way up in Christmas land. And he says the toys for good girls and boys are being made as planned. There's a truck for little Billy and a dolly for Molly, dear. But you ain't getting diddly squat 'cause you're really messed up this year.
No, you ain't getting diddly squat 'cause you're really messed up this year.
Fields are white with snow and the lights are shining bright. And the wee little heads stuck up in beds dream of sugar plums this night. You may dream of big red apples and candy canes so near, but you ain't getting diddly squat 'cause you're really messed up this year.
No, you ain't getting diddly squat 'cause you're really messed up this year.
When your mother asked you to wash the dishes, why you said no, no, no. And you would not pick up your socks, so it's que sera, or space, ho, ho, ho. Oh, you know that Santa's watching you and he keeps a great big list. But when I tell him the things you do, he really will be mad. 'Cause when you sit upon his knee, he'll knock you on your ear 'cause you ain't getting diddly squat 'cause you're really messed up this year.
Oh, you ain't getting diddly squat
'Cause you really messed up, boy, you're really messed up, boy, you're really messed up this year.
8 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, a Thursday, December the 15th, 1994. A very good afternoon to you, fun seekers. A very good afternoon to you indeed. Yesterday was, the last half hour or so yesterday was a little bit slow on the phones, okay? And right towards the end of the show, the few people that were on hold suddenly decided to drop off. So I had to kind of, tap dance, fill, call it whatever you want. Doesn't make much difference. I had to start talking off the top of my head. And I started talking about something that I'd heard on the station earlier that day. It's not the first time I'd ever heard it, but it's something that just amazes me every time I do. I'm easily amazed, okay? It was something on the boys' show, and the boys, I don't know how they got into it. I don't know how the hell they got out of it. I don't even know how long it went on. Doesn't really make much difference, but there were a number of people, quite a number of people that I heard, who were discussing the great issue of homosexuality, one of the main issues of our day. And they were discussing it from the religious or biblical perspective, citing chapter and verse as to why homosexuality was such why it really bummed God out, you know? I'm not the smartest guy on the face of the earth. There's so much I don't know. There are some things I do know, of course, and a lot that I don't, and I've never said otherwise, and I'm always amazed at how much more most other people seem to know about some things than I do. People fascinate me, which is a strange thing for, recluse to say, but people do fascinate me. I don't particularly like to, go out and chat with them, people I don't know. I like to stay home, But I also like to observe. I like to watch how people act, what they say, what they think, what they believe. Take God as an example. I must be the only guy around who doesn't know a lot about God. At least I assume that he is a he. I spent a lot of time thinking about God. Does that surprise you? I don't know why it would. I spent a great deal of time thinking about God. I wish I knew God. I wish I knew a lot more about him. I wish I could sit down and talk to him. There's so much I'd like to ask him. Most of the time that I think about God, I'm outdoors. Okay? I don't know why that is, but, well, yeah, I guess I do know why it is. Because when you're out, see, when you're inside, you're in a man-made environment. And, you know how walls are put up. Maybe you can't make a wall yourself, but you know how they're put up, and you know how, a couch is made and where it comes from and all this kind of good stuff. And there's not really an awful lot to wonder at inside your house. But when you step outdoors, how do you make a tree? God, I don't know. How many stars are there? Why are they there? What keeps them up there? How did they begin? Are they ever going to end? Questions. Oh, my God, I've got questions I'd love to ask God. And I assume God's the only one who really has the answers. Hope he has the answers. And so when I say I'd like to know God, I'd like to know more about... See, I don't have any selfish questions to ask God. I wouldn't ask God, are you going to forgive me for having that affair with Elaine's ship? Or are you going to make me burn in the lake of fire? I wouldn't ask him about heaven and hell and things like that and salvation. I do the best I can, and, if he's going to be my judge, then he's going to be my judge, and that's the way it goes. And I don't suppose there's really a hell of a lot I can do about it. Other people seem to know so much more about God than I do. Yesterday, for example, I found out that God's turned off by homosexuality. Big time! Sodomy in particular. Imagine that. I'm not sure why that is, but everybody, without exception, who called in was so sure about it, man. They were absolutely, positively sure about it. They were sure that God was really turned off by the gay people. It also seems as though God is far more upset by male homosexuality than female homosexuality. Again, I'm not really sure why. It's probably not one of the questions I would ask him if I could talk to him, but... I should think that one form of homosexuality, one gender's homosexuality, would upset him as much as the others, but, judging by the book, and of course I refer to the good book, male homosexuality is of far more concern to God than female homosexuality. Even to the point of describing exactly which acts are the worst. Female homosexuality is not addressed specifically in the good book, but instead it's all kind of vague. I tell you, that God... He's kind of hard for me to figure out. You know what I mean? I think about him a lot. I really do. Do you? As an example, I wonder why his views on homosexuality are the way that they apparently are. I don't think I'd trouble him with a question. I have too many other questions, but I wonder about it. I personally, I've got to admit to being uncomfortable about homosexuality myself. I'm not sure why. I just am, okay? If you're gay, it's okay with me. I'm not going to condemn you or put a tire around your neck, fill it with gasoline, and set it on fire. So long as you don't flaunt it in my face, so to speak, it's okay with me. It just, I'm just a little uncomfortable. It's hard to explain. And like God, apparently, female homosexuality, it doesn't bother me as much. Isn't that a coincidence? Maybe I have a lot more in common with God than I thought. This morning I heard that God wasn't really born in some stranger's barn, but in a relative's house instead. I'm not all that clear on the details about that. And I sure as hell don't know how they came up with that one, but somebody did. Frankly, I don't see the significance or the importance to it all, but it's more important to me to understand... It's more important to me to understand why he's so upset with the faggots. And the male gays more than the female gays, I don't care where he was born. Barn, house, what difference does it make? But that's the way my mind works. It apparently works a lot differently than yours. And so, like I said, I really do spend a lot of time thinking about God. I'm on a beach or out at night and there aren't too many lights around and you can see a gazillion stars in the sky. Thought a lot about God this spring when I had all those baby birds in my yard. Wondering how the hell the Cardinals knew how to raise cardinals and the Blue Jays knew how to raise Blue Jays. And yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about God. Hey, I sure don't want to do anything to piss him off. And I would like to understand him better. Not too many people seem to spend a lot of time trying to understand God. You know what I mean? Do you spend much time, if any, trying to understand God, like how he thinks, why he thinks the way he does, that kind of stuff? It's 16 minutes after 2.
AM 620, WSUN, entertaining talk radio for the 90s.
20 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. I guess we all think about God in our own ways. I mean, like there I am sitting out in the backyard thinking about, how do cardinals know how to teach little cardinals to be cardinals, and the adult cardinals, they teach the little cardinals how to eat sunflower seeds and berries. But the hawk teaches its young how to eat cardinals. I wonder why that is. Wonder why God did it that way. I'd ask him if I could. Other people think about God in other ways. There are people that worry about how they're going to look in heaven, how old they're going to be, what the temperature is going to be like, what it's going to smell like in the lake of fire. I don't know. I think about other things too besides the birds. I mean, as an example, take the phrase, God bless America. It's a common phrase, very common one. A lot of people say it all the time. Hell, even the president. Well, some of the presidents say it anyway. God bless America. What does that mean? God bless America. Seems innocent enough, but what does it really mean? A blessing is it's a blessing, right? I guess it's kind of like a favor from God. God favor America. That would pretty much say the same thing, right? God favor us with good weather. God favor us with abundant crops. God favor us with more wealth. Whatever. Or I guess another way of saying it might be, God, give us more of what you might otherwise have given us. I wonder if that pisses him off. No, I'm serious. Kind of begging and whining for more, not being satisfied with what he gave us, not being satisfied with what he had in mind for us. People who seem to know a lot more about God than I do tell me that God has a perfect plan. Well, if that's the case, it might piss him off if you ask him to change his plans. Maybe he was only planning on giving you 94 bushels of corn to the acre this year, and you're asking for 125. Right? Then there's the problem of asking him to favor some of us more than he favors others. Another example would be, there's this horrible famine in some country, and there are the little babies with their extended bellies, and over there's some 13-year-old with nothing but bones covered by skin, and then he's just covered with flies, and we who ain't doing all that bad around here ask for even more than we have. Ooh. Did you ever think about how he might get pissed? Or did you ever think about how he might get pissed when there are children? Children, innocent little children, all over the world dying from diseases and malnutrition. And we ask him to bless our dogs and cats. It would piss me off if I was God. I would think it would piss me off big time. I often try to put myself in God's shoes, or sandals as the case may be. Do you? I'm not trying to be irreverent. I'm serious. Put yourself in God's place. Try to see things as he might see them. I'll bet that if you did that, you'd be a lot different than you already are. Bet you'd look at things a lot differently than you do. I'll bet you'd ask for a lot different things than you ask for. Let's say that you're God, okay? You give your people free will and the knowledge to know right from wrong. And, of course, you, as God, you want them to do what's right. Well, two of your people are taking a math test, and one has studied real hard. He's prepared himself for this test, and the other one, a couple of nights down at Ybor City there, he did the best that he could under the circumstances, and besides, math ain't really his thing. So the test is being passed out by the teacher, okay? And the guy that spent his time down there at Ybor City instead of studying for the math test suddenly starts praying up a storm to you. Oh, please, God, I need an A on this test. Please, God, please, begging and pleading for what amounts to a miracle. He wants the A. Well, a few years from now, both students are up for the same job, okay? The hardworking guy and the partying prayer. The hardworking guy has a 3.85 grade point average because once he got a C in gym. He's not too athletically inclined, and he didn't do too good in the wrestling part or something. I don't know. He got a C in gym, and he's only got a 3.85 grade average. Otherwise, he really did great in school, but personnel manager is going over his resume. It's pretty much the same as yours, except he's got that 3.85 grade average. You, on the other hand, hey, you were pretty good in gym. You got an A. So along with the A that God gave you on the math test, you have a 4.0 grade point average. And you get the job. Hey, that's great. God blessed you. Or in other words, of course, he blessed you at the expense of the hardworking guy, didn't he? Do you think that God would do that? Would you do that if you were God? Do you think that he might be annoyed if you asked him to? Or say that there's this terrible, awful hurricane. Oh, bad hurricane. Killer winds, terrible rains, a storm surge that, oh, Jesus, it's just going to bring devastation, and it's heading right your way. And you start praying up another storm, and it's, oh, God, please spare us. Please, God. Please spare us. And God turns the hurricane to the northeast, more or less harmlessly away. Except for that fishing boat that got caught, taking out 5 poor slobs, leaving behind 5 widows, 19 orphans. And you show up at church giving thanks for your good fortune. Think that might annoy God? Would it annoy you if you were God? Or even more importantly, do you think that God would blow away the fishermen in favor of you? I'll tell you, I don't think he would. It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be just. It wouldn't be merciful. Yet things like that happen, don't they? How? Why? I can't answer that. Except to say that God must have nothing whatsoever to do with it. How could he? Think about it. If I was God, I wouldn't do it. And I surely know better than God. Right? Is it wrong to look at it this way? It's 2:27.
Psychic readings, predictions, observations. It's the Gary Spivey Show. Weekdays 6 till 8 p.m. on AM 620 WSUN. Entertaining talk radio for the 90s.
Okay, let's say that you're still God, okay? And let's look at another situation. Let's say that there's a child, beautiful little girl. Well, she was a beautiful little girl once. She's lying in a hospital bed, and her frail, pathetic little arms are black and blue from where all the intravenous needles have been stuck. She's hooked up to machines. Just a few weeks or a few months ago, she was a normal, healthy child. Her entire life in front of her, and then her body became riddled with cancer. Now she's in horrible pain. She's suffering miserably. Miserably. The pain is so bad that only a lethal dose of painkiller can deaden it. And then, of course, there are the parents. Talk about suffering. Their pride, their joy, their blood, their flesh, laying there, wasting in front of them, and suffering. People assume, of course, that God could cure the cancer, that he could work a miracle. So they pray. They pray asking for a blessing. They pray asking for a miracle. What are we saying here? We are saying that God could stop the suffering. He could reverse the disease if he wanted to. But he won't. Unless you ask. That he would allow an innocent child to suffer miserably. That he would allow her parents, her siblings, other loved ones, to suffer miserably. Unless you ask him otherwise. And then he might or he might not listen. He might or he might not grant the blessing. Hey, come on now. Let's get serious. Are we talking about a loving God or a monster? If I was God, I'm sure that I would be annoyed at best with people who thought that I could do something about the suffering child but was standing around waiting for the right prayer to be said. Wouldn't you? You see, when I think about God, that's the kind of stuff I think about. Do you? They tell me that God created me, therefore, he must have given me the mind that I have and whatever common sense that I possess, right? And it would be wrong not to use it, right? Whatever logic and reason I have must have come from God, must have come from my Creator. And it must have been given to me for a reason. I look around me, and in nature I see order, logic, and reason. I see the same God that created me created the world around me. If the same mind that created me created everything else, then it is only logical, only reasonable to assume that he is consistent. That is, that he always thinks and acts the same way. Small fish, okay? Small fish are there for what reason? Well, basically to feed bigger fish. That is why they exist. That, they tell me, is his plan. And no amount of prayer can or will change that. The small fish are there to be eaten by the bigger fish, who exist to be eaten by bigger fish still. On and on and on and on. Of course, that doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense, you know? I mean, I find it hard to believe that God created small fish to live their entire lives in fear, only to suffer horrible deaths in the jaws of a bigger fish, who end up suffering horrible deaths in the bellies of whales, who end up suffering horrible deaths so that I can have lamp oil and lipstick. But there are only two possibilities here. Either it is indeed part of God's plan, or else it just happened that way. It's just the way it is. Frankly, it seems a bit far-fetched to me that he went to these lengths so that I can read at night with an oil lamp. And so that Muffy can have lipstick. So maybe it just happened. That it's not part of any supernatural grand scheme, any supernatural plan. But if it isn't, now, here we have a problem. Here we have a big problem. If it isn't part of the plan, maybe there isn't any plan at all. And that is a problem. At least for some people. You see, if God didn't have this convoluted plan to provide man with lamp oil for a few years, until petroleum came along, then in all probability, he ain't turned off by homosexuals either. And then people would have to admit to themselves that their hatreds and their prejudices, as well as their other shortcomings, are indeed their own and not God's. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that you can't hate faggots. Sure you can. It just means that you can't blame God for it. And when somebody asks you, you can't cite chapter and verse. Oh, it's not me, it's God. In fact, it causes a lot of other problems as well. You see, your failures become just that. They become your own failures, not part of God's mysterious ways. Your good fortune is also just that, luck, and not a blessing from God. No longer can you kid yourself that God favors you more than some other poor slob. People like to think that God likes them more than somebody else. The church likes that kind of thinking as well. They actually encourage it, really encourage it. An example would be that the church would encourage you to give thanks for your good fortune, maybe in the stock market. And people do, never thinking that everyone who held that stock, let's say it was IBM, also made money this year, even the really bad guys. Or they would have you give thanks for the profit you turned on the sale of your house. Well, either all the property owners, good or bad, also made money, or God deliberately forced some slob to pay you more than your house was worth. Let's say that that's what happened, okay? God liked you so much that he wanted you to have some extra cash. So he made someone else overpay you for the property that you sold. He enriched you at somebody else's expense. That in itself raises some interesting questions. I'm told by the church, of course, that God created me and everybody else with a free will. Well, the guy who overpaid for the house either did so of his own free will or he was forced to do so by God so that I could get my blessing. Well, if the guy chose not to overpay, if he chose to exercise his free will and not be a sucker, then God would not have been able to bless me. It would have been out of God's hands, wouldn't it? But if the guy who overpaid me was forced to overpay by God, then there are at least some loopholes in this free will thing. There are at least some exceptions. Are you following all of this? It's not really all that hard, is it? Just take some common sense. I enjoy thinking about God. It's one of the reasons I spend a lot of time thinking about God. You know what helps keep me on the straight and narrow? Of course, the church doesn't like me or you to sit down and really think about him. Because you see, God must make some sense. And the church simply doesn't. I, of course, am not in the God business, so to speak, and the church is. Wouldn't you think that people actually in the business would spend at least as much time thinking about him as I do? But then, of course, the church, which is just another word for religion, has never really been in favor of you using the brains that they tell you that God gave you. And they have never encouraged thinking. They prefer preaching in the truest sense of the word. They prefer to do your thinking for you. It's 2:40.
Catch the Ron and Ron Show, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on AM 620 WSUN.
2:44 the time. Now, I usually know about these things. I assume that I've distressed a few people out there. Why? Well, because I've said unpleasant things about God? No, not at all. I've defended God. I've said unpleasant things about the church. And these people can't quite tell the difference between the church and God. See, the church tells you that they are there to save you, that they are your friends. They are there to save you. But save you from who? From God. What do you need to be saved from God? Why do you need to be saved from God? Well, the church tells you because God has set all kinds of traps to get you in trouble. As an example, God created you with a sex drive. A very strong sex drive. But he doesn't want you to use it very much. Oh. So if you follow the church's teachings and don't use your sex drive, God will save you because he loves you. But if he loves me, why did he set all these traps for me? if you were God. Would you do that? In fact, almost all of my natural instincts, supposedly God-given instincts, can get me in trouble with God. Or so the church would have me believe. Well, the truth of the matter is that I will be a better member of the community if indeed I do control my senior instincts. I appreciate that, but I just have a real problem in accepting that God gave them to me to trap me. Let's try to examine this a little bit more closely, okay? Again, let's say you're God, okay? And there you are sitting up in the God place, and you're designing some snowflakes, and designing some new flowers, and designing a new insect, and and you decide to design a man. And you come up with the idea that during a certain period of my life, not all of my life, mind you, but just during a certain portion of it, my sex drive will be very, very strong. Whoa! Basically during the middle part of my life. I mean, when I'm a child, there will be very little sex drive. And as I age, it will wane dramatically. But during the period in between youth and maturity, it will be strong. There will be periods in my life when I'll be hardly able to think about anything else other than, sex. And if I give in to this urge, the urge that you as God came up with, I can and will be punished for it. Does that make any sense? Is that the way you would do it if you were God? Along the same lines, God designed me as a heterosexual. An individual who is sexually attracted to a member of the opposite sex. It is all but impossible for me and for most of you to enter into a homosexual relationship. To me, the thought of having sex with another man it's yucky. It's not in the least bit stimulating. And then God designs some other poor soul who has no interest in heterosexual relationships whatsoever. To this poor soul, the thought of having sexual relations with a person of the opposite sex it's yucky. Not in the least bit stimulating. But this poor soul craves a homosexual relationship, a sexual relationship with someone of his own gender. And then God lays down the law that should this poor soul follow his heart, follow his natural instincts, he will be punished for it? Is that the way you would do it if you were God? On top of that, consider this. God supposedly is really turned off by this behavior. Whoa, chapter and verse. I mean, really turned off by it. In fact, it is an abomination in his eyes. That's a very strong word, abomination. Very strong word. I mean, about the only time you ever hear the word abomination is when someone's talking about something that God doesn't like. It's an abomination in God's eyes. I mean, I never heard of the boss having an abomination. My wife doesn't have any abominations. Only God has abominations. This is a strong word. Would you, as God, design and create something destined or even capable of doing what you found to be an abomination? Well, either God must be stupid or a masochist. And I just can't accept that he's either. Can you? You see, when I sit down and think about God and what they would have me believe about him, it almost makes me angry. I mean, the way he's depicted, the way God is blamed for things that he could not possibly be responsible for. He's depicted as more of an irrational monster than a loving, just, and merciful creator. God could not possibly be irrational. Who could possibly be irrational? Let's see. Who could be? Man. Man sure could be, couldn't he? And so people ask me, do you believe in God? That question annoys me. It annoys the hell out of me for several reasons. First of all, it's a very shallow question. I mean, and it really isn't any of your business anyway. And it's a very complex issue, because to answer the question, you have to determine exactly what it is that you're talking about. Well, what do you mean by God? Whose concept of God? Whose idea of God? Whose image of God? Yours? The church's? Mine? Someone else's? Well, I don't believe in a God who is irrational. I don't believe in a God who is unjust or a game player. I don't believe in a God who is stupid or a masochist, and I have no problem saying so. Of course, a lot of people get pissed with me for not believing in an irrational God. Go figure. Those people even call me names. Wish me the most horrible fate. Hey, you should rot in the lake of fire. Worms should crawl in and out of your nose. Water bugs should eat your eyes for not believing in an irrational, unjust God. People would go so far as to say that God will punish me for saying that he is not irrational, unjust, and unmerciful. That I will rot in hell for such thoughts. That somehow I must be a very, very bad person for thinking that way. Imagine. I try to lead a good life. I accept blame for my shortcomings, responsibility for my actions. I never blame God for my faults, nor my failures. And I even think nice thoughts about him. And I'm the evil one. The one who will be punished forever and ever in the lake of fire. But the people who think that he is mean, vengeful, cruel, and unjust will be rewarded. The people who believe that God would sit by him passionately, twiddling his thumbs while a child suffers. That God would send horrid disasters that punish the guilty and the innocent and lay traps for mere mortals will be rewarded. Well, one of us is wrong. One of us is absolutely, positively, unequivocally, without a question, dead wrong. And one of us has been barking up the wrong tree. Like I said, I spent a lot of time thinking about God. A lot more than many people would like me to. In fact, most people would prefer that I don't think about him at all. Most people would prefer that I never think about him. That I let them do the thinking for me. That I fill my head with questions of, how old will I be in heaven? Will I get my wisdom tooth back? Will my grandpop get his amputated leg back in heaven? Will it smell like flowers, daisies or roses? That's the kind of stuff they'd like me to think about God. Any number of people will spend the rest of the afternoon defending the church and ignoring poor old God. Ignoring everything I just said. We're trying to come up with the most convoluted excuses to get around it. Oh, well, God must have had a reason for that child suffering. Yeah, that's why he let the child suffer. Yeah. But he cured somebody of impetigo over the Pat Robertson show. I saw it yesterday. Okay. Like I said, unless I'm wrong. But when it comes to this business, I rarely am. I thought about what I was going to say to you this afternoon. Because it's something I think about a lot. It's something I think about a great deal. As I started out saying to you, I wish I knew a lot more about God. I wish I knew God. That doesn't mean I want to hear about your chapters and your verses. That doesn't tell me about God. It doesn't answer the questions that I have. I don't care about salvation. I don't care about what the temperature is in heaven. I don't care about what it smells like in the lake of fire. My questions are much more profound. My questions are much less selfish. I'm sorry about yours. Let me give you the telephone numbers. In Pinellas, 576-WSUN, 576-WSUN. In Hillsborough, 221-WSUN, 221-WSUN. All other areas, toll-free, 1-800-356-WSUN, 1-800-356-WSUN. I'm sure if there are any of those people out there who had the chapters and verse so ready on homosexuality yesterday for the boys, never thought about any of those things I just said, did you? Never gave them a second's thought, an instant's thought. But you're so sure you know how God thinks. Just what a coincidence it is that God thinks the exact same way you do. That he went to so much trouble to justify your thoughts, your position, your views, your prejudices, your hatreds. Oh, God is great. God is good, isn't he? It's 2:56.
AM 620 WSUN, entertaining talk radio for the 90s. It's time for Lassiter. You can talk to the Mad Dog in Hillsborough at 221-WSUN. In Pinellas, 576-WSUN. All other areas, 1-800-356-WSUN. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the advertisers, staff, or management of AM 620 WSUN. Entertaining talk radio for the 90s.
See if you can spot the fat one. In the morning from 6 to 10 on SUN. He's the guy that makes Dom DeLuise cry. He likes to think he's number one. Blah-bell. He's bigger than the coast. Blah-bell. His eyelids are the most. Blah-bell. Biggest man in radio today. He plays the songs that make you sleepy. He steals material from Neil. He gives the time when the weather's looking fine. It's time to play the song again. Blah-bell. Bigger than the coast, Blah-bell. His eyelids are the most, Blah-bell. The biggest man in radio today. Let's make the sun our sister station and bring the Blah-bell here today. And if the clap man could lose another kid, he'd have more boring songs to play. Blah-bell. He's bigger than the coast. Blah-bell. His eyelids are the most. Blah-bell. The biggest man in radio today. Blah-bell. Bigger than the coast, Blah-bell. His eyelids are the most, Blah-bell. The biggest man in radio today.
8.5 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, a Thursday, December the 15th, 1994. An incredibly interesting situation on the phones.
What?
Someone who has now been waiting for over an hour was on there before I even started to speak. Went through the entire monologue, got a nickel that says they're not on topic. And then I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I believe the entire board turned over at least twice from the time I finished the monologue and gave the phone numbers. People called up, went on hold, hung up. People called up, went on hold, and then most of those have dropped off. So a very, very interesting situation. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. All other areas toll free. 1-800-356-WSUN. Well, what the hell? Let's find out. Let's go to Arcadia. Hello. Over an hour.
That was it?
That was it.
Well, guess his goats aren't giving enough milk or something.
Guess
He had
not.
to have something to do with his hands.
576 WSUN in Pinellas, Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. God, it's just amazing how little some people have to do with their lives. Let's do Kenneth City. Hi there, Kenneth. You're on the air at WSUN.
Hi.
Hi.
You were talking about God and homosexuals and so on.
Yeah, I'm very well aware of what I was talking about, sir. Quite some time.
Let's try it this way. The fundamentalists are just dead flat wrong about all that. Because if you are a Christian, the old Mosaic law is dead. It died on the cross. And is therefore not to be paid any more attention to. Christians are supposed to have faith in Jesus Christ to cover all of those.
I don't wish to discuss Christianity, sir.
Well,
I don't believe I mentioned Christianity. As a matter of fact, I'm positive I didn't mention Christianity. I believe I mentioned God.
Well, you can't.
Not a religion, sir.
Well, how do you separate God out of religion then?
I thought I did marvelously.
Well, then you're on some kind of a philosophical plane, I guess, and then I can't discuss that.
Sorry. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. Let's do Tampa. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at WSUN.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I just want to say I've been a long-time listener, and I listen to you on the car on the way to work, and I agree with just about everything you say. I like how you give the religious moral majority people a hard time. In fact, my brother's an attorney. He just won a big settlement against Operation Rescue and Randall Terry. And I just wanted to give you a little quotation for your listeners. It goes like this: total devotion to one religion is intellectual suicide because it closes your mind to other possibilities. And I also want to comment that I think religion has really caused a lot of problems in the world. If you look at all the conflicts all over in Bosnia and the Middle East and pretty much everywhere in Ireland, there's always one religion against another. And if people want to practice a religion, that's great. But I think you get into problems when they try and push it onto somebody else. And one more thing I wanted to tell my listeners is, or your listeners, I should say, is I waited on you the other night. I won't say the name of the restaurant, and you were very nice to wait on. And
sure, go ahead, plug your restaurant. Which restaurant was it?
Oh, yeah.
I did several this week.
It was the Colonnade restaurant.
Oh, the Colonnade? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was your waiter, and you came in there with someone, and it was very nice. And I just want to let people know out there, learn how to tip people. 15 to 20% is the right tip if the service is good. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And it might be, I just thought I'd get that out on the air.
Okay.
And I've enjoyed listening to you for a long time, and thanks for giving me the time.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Didn't thank me for the generous gratuity, though. Kind of implied I stiffed him or something. It's a very generous gratuity.
He wouldn't do that.
No, not after he recognized me, for God's sake. 576 WSUN in Pinellas. I was going to before he recognized me. Complaining to the wife, God, I hate when they recognize me at restaurants. I have to tip better. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. Let's go to Sarasota. Hi there, Sarasota. You're on the air at WSUN.
Hey, Bob.
Hey.
I listen to you all the time when I'm driving around in the car doing my little delivery thing I've got to do. Your shows are, well, usually funny, if not at least fascinating. And the deal about God is quite an interesting deal. I think probably what you ought to do, you ought to define some terms. I think, might be helpful. What do you mean, like, when you use the term church?
I said religion.
Religion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
like,
rarely
you
leave
don't mean a
loopholes in my
particular
monologues.
organization. Pardon me?
I rarely leave loopholes in my monologues.
Okay, you don't mean like a particular organization then?
No, all of them.
Any organized religion.
Well, they all teach the same thing.
Well, now, of course, you know that's not true.
In essence, in terms of what I was talking about, they all teach the same thing. They all say God's responsible for the same stuff. But these are his ideas.
Well, the problem is, of course, they fail to make any differentiation between what God allows and what he does, personally. I mean, humans do that. This is a matter of having volition. You allow certain things, but it doesn't mean that.
I haven't the vaguest idea what God allows. Do you?
Pardon me?
I haven't the vaguest idea what God allows. Do you?
Well, anything you look around in the world, you have to say at least that He allows it.
Maybe He's powerless to do anything about it.
If we say He exists.
Maybe He's powerless to do anything about it. I don't know that He allows famine. Maybe He just can't do anything about it. I don't know that He allows hurricanes.
Why bother even worrying about Him? Why? I mean, what's the point? If He's powerless, if He can't do anything.
Well, I don't know that He is powerless. That's just the point. I don't know.
Okay, well.
Nobody does.
I guess another question I have for you there that you can address is people have a basis for what they believe. You say something, you make a statement. Generally, you figure you're speaking the truth. I mean, the truth should be the basis of what we talk about. Would you agree with that?
No, sorry. I think that fallacy should be the basis of what we want. Come on.
See, this is what makes you so good. I guess the bottom line is, and I think maybe the guy from Arcadia addressed it already, it wouldn't really matter if people had chapters and verses or anything else. Because, see, a lot of the things you address, I don't know, Bob, maybe you were cut out for the ministry, I'm not sure, but a lot of the things you address are the very things the Bible teaches. For instance, that God is not irrational, that He acts in conjunction.
And then it tells you how irrational He is.
Oh, maybe you're more rational.
Well, no. Wait a second. Let's go back to the example of the homosexual. You know, only the most ignorant will tell you that homosexuality is a chosen lifestyle. There may be people who are bisexual and choose to spend most of their sexual time with people of the same gender, but we know for a fact that there are people who are attracted to their own gender. These people, we are told by the good book, are created by God. So, therefore, we must assume that God sat up there and created people who He knew were destined, who He knew had no other choice but to do things that were an abomination to Him. That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
that's irrational.
Yeah, no. There was one fallacy in what you said. You said He made people who had no other choice. You just eliminated volition with that statement. And God did not do that. God wouldn't do that.
So
God, as you said...
So it's your contention that homosexuals do have other choices?
Oh, certainly. Of course. I mean, just like, the guy who drinks too much to excess and goes out and drives, did he not have a choice? I mean, he knew, anybody who drinks knows that if...
Well, then, sir, why did God create these people with a sex drive?
Well, because, see, sex drives were...
To set traps for them?
Things that God used to...
To set traps for them, to do things that are an abomination to Him so He can punish them?
No. It's like...
Well, apparently, sir. That's what the good book says.
No. He created... If God... Let's say I want to give you something good. Let's say I find out... and I mean, I'm not pretending to be God. Let's not get too carried away here with the analogy. But let's say I want to give you something good. I know you like scotch. You like 30-year-old scotch. So I get you a bottle of 30-year-old scotch. Because I want to do something good for you. And you take that bottle of scotch and you drink it and you drink to excess and you go out and drive and you kill somebody.
Sir, the second strongest drive that a human being has is his sex drive, only superseded by his drive to survive.
That's true. I agree.
That must have been a God-given instinct or drive, correct?
It was, yes.
And then he makes some people who have no interest whatsoever in members of the opposite sex.
Well,
and punishes them for it?
Wait a second. You just said He did that. What is your basis? What is your proof that He did that?
I thought God created everything, sir.
He did, but you said He created.
Well, then He must have created those. Then He must have created those people who have some genetic difference.
Wait a second. What are you basing this genetic thing on? Wait a second.
You still wish to insist that homosexuals are homosexual because they want to be.
Yes, absolutely. Of course.
Well, sir, let me trot it out for the 337th time. Are you attracted by women with large breasts? I mean really big breasts.
Well,
why not, sir?
Why not?
Yeah.
Well,
why don't you find a 56-inch chest? Why don't you find a 56-inch chest a sexual turn on? You don't know, do you?
No, I do know. I was going to answer.
No, you don't know.
I do know. I was going to tell you.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me,
choose to
sir.
exercise my sexuality in the confines.
Oh, that's a bunch of crap, sir. You're simply not turned on by it. You don't know why. That's the answer. Because you don't understand your own sexuality. No one understands his or her sexuality. It is what it is, what it is.
It is a drive. I agree with you. But, Bob...
that you have no control over.
Probably, just like I choose every day. I don't know that we necessarily stop and make conscious choices, but we choose not to do certain things. Why do we choose not to do? Why do you choose not
Sir,
to?
Sir, you sound to me like the exact individual that I was talking about. Someone who has conveniently found a religion that has a God that shares his very own prejudices.
No, Bob, we're talking about.
No, of course not, sir. It's 3:20.
AM 620 WSUN. Santa Claus is coming, and Mrs. Claus is happy about it.
Tonight on Channel 1 Action News, are we being ripped off at the supermarket? Investigative reporter Susan Buckner finds out.
Tom, I'm standing in front of a J&B Food Mart with a gentleman by the name of...
Chuck.
Now, Chuck, you just bought a gallon of low-fat milk, 2 boxes of... What are these?
That's generic microwave popcorn.
And a can of baby peas. How much did all of this cost you, Chuck?
$9.59.
Chuck, do you feel you were ripped off?
No.
Tom?
Thank you, Susan, for that report. In other news, the Channel 1 Action News team. We make news happen, even when it doesn't.
Let's go to St. Petersburg. Hi, St. You're on the air at WSUN.
Good day, Mr. Lassiter.
Hi.
I don't know if this is appropriate to say here, but just my little spin on God. A long time ago, somebody explained this to me, the way God is, and why man exists. And it's like this. God created everything. And God was sitting up there, and he would send an angel, tell me about this rock. And the angel would come back and tell him about the rock. But he already knew about the rock because he created the rock. So he created man. And that's the reason man was created. Man is an experiment. Man is the only thing that goes against the direct will of God in the whole universe. So that's my comments. Frog.
Doesn't say crap, but that's what he said. 576 WSUN in Pinellas, Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. Tampa. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at WSUN.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
There was a letter to the editor. This is sort of about homosexuality, and I'm also going to tie it into religion a little bit. There was a letter to the editor in the Tampa Tribune a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Some man, again, using the good book to support his prejudices against homosexuality. And he put a couple of Bible verses in there, that standard ones that they choose to support. And I'm really getting sick of it. First of all, there's something that people need to know, and you've said this a couple of times today. There is absolutely no evidence that homosexuality, or for that matter, heterosexuality, is a chosen lifestyle. No evidence, none whatsoever.
Well, let us assume that it is. For the sake of this conversation, for the next 15 seconds, let us assume that it is. Therefore, God created some people, only a handful, of people who can go both ways, knowing full well in advance to him it was an abomination. That doesn't make any sense.
You're absolutely right. Scientifically, there is compelling evidence that it's biological, or there's evidence that it is also genetic. There's also evidence that it's environmental. But again, they know. Time and time again, individuals have, through psychotherapy or psychological services, etc., tried to change their sexuality. Never once has there ever been a documented case of someone being successful at changing their innate sexuality. They have, in many instances, been able to repress their desires. I stress the word repress their desires, but never change their innate sexuality or basic attraction. And almost unanimously, experts today theorize that it's a combination of all of the different factors: biological, genetic, social, environmental, etc. And I'm really sick and tired of hearing individual after individual who know utterly nothing about the issue of sexuality.
Well, of course, then there was the other thing that I really started out with, and that is that apparently male homosexuality is far more of an abomination to God than female homosexuality is.
Yes, the Bible, and it's a matter of interpretation, by the way, whether or not the Bible ever even mentions homosexuality. I mean, it's been changed so many times since the original, scriptures were written, obviously thousands of years ago. The word homosexuality wasn't even coined until 1889 or 82, I believe, by some German scientists. So, I mean, it's just time and time. I mean, there's so many different lines that you can approach this issue from. But I'm sick of the average, ordinary individual thinking that they have this, educated opinion about sexuality when they don't know anything about sexuality. I'm not a biologist.
Including their own, apparently.
I'm sorry?
Including their own,
That's
apparently.
Correct. I mean, I do not claim to be a biologist. I have, however, done a lot of reading about this subject because I happen to be in the theater community. And there are a lot of people, for whatever reason, and I honestly don't know why, that are in the theater community who happen to be homosexual. And I am sick and tired of seeing time and time again those dear friends of mine suffering discrimination, and not only that, but their personal nightmare that goes on sometimes for years of dealing with their sexuality and who they are in a society that is just simply basing their opinions on ignorance.
Well, you see, that I can deal with.
Always it comes from religion.
That I can deal with. I have my own prejudices too, and so therefore I understand prejudice. What I don't understand is not having the courage to stand up and say, I don't like so-and-so. Period. I don't like so-and-so, as opposed to hiding behind something else.
Yeah.
Oh, well, God doesn't like so-and-so. Yeah, that's what it is. God doesn't like it. Hey, you don't like faggots? Okay, I don't like faggots. All right, so now take the heat for it. Don't pass it on to somebody else that isn't here to defend himself.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I give you a lot of credit for is having, I mean, I really love it, not because I enjoy hearing the word Negro ever, or even faggot, obviously, and I certainly wouldn't use them in everyday conversation, but I love that you phrase things that way, because it's like, come on, people, be honest with your... And that's one of our major problems, I think, is that people are not honest with themselves with regard to their religion or their beliefs. When you did that show last week about prayer in school, you made a very strong case for a difference between opinion and evidential fact. I mean, and people today have no concept. I mean, it's like, there is a difference between fact and opinion, or beliefs and theories. And no one seems to remember that anymore these days. Their opinions are fact, and it makes no sense to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's 3:29.
AM 620, WSUN. Entertaining talk radio for the 90s.
Sucks, but hey, I'm dead. I think I just lost my head. My bandmates must need the cash for them to release this trash. We hope this crap you'll buy. Some worms just ate my eyes. Put a shotgun to my head. Put a shotgun to my head. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. Yeah.
3:33 the time, 27 minutes away from the hour of 4 o'clock. Sharon and I spent a great deal of time wondering about heaven and hell.
Do ya?
For example, I wonder what it might be like watching television in heaven.
Boy, me too.
I'll bet you can sit there and flip through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of channels. Oh, God, it must be great. And in hell, probably just a handful of channels.
In hell, you get all the religious channels.
And they'd have a lot of snow and limes in them, and sometimes just the picture would go out, and they'd probably charge an arm and a leg for it too,
Yeah.
But in heaven, oh my God.
They give you flubber toys while you
I'll
watch.
just say the bimbo comes up with her own lines in the middle of it. Anyway, where was I? In heaven, Sharon.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it would almost be like having your own satellite system, you know?
Oh, that would be heaven.
Oh, that would be heaven. And you can have heaven right here on Earth for as little as $22 a month if you had your own satellite dish from Satellite Depot. $22 a month with no money down. Think of it. You control your own life. Choose from hundreds of available channels with a Satellite Depot satellite dish. And keep in mind, Satellite Depot sells their systems at wholesale prices. And keep in mind, they also have the newest in satellite technology, the miraculous 18-inch RCA dish for as little as $14 a month. So call Satellite Depot today. Find out how you can have your own satellite system. Call 1-800-393-7359. 1-800-393-7359 in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, and unfortunately the Lake of Fire, Venice. That's 1-800-393-7359. And if that's too much for you, if you're not really sure that a satellite system is what you want, what you need, they'll rent you one for as little as $5 a month. Satellite Depot. It's better than dying and going to heaven.
Point of bargain, too.
I have all the religious channels in hell. Jesus, Sharon. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. What do you have for us this hour?
Did you hear about that pizza survey?
Pizza survey? No, I'm afraid I didn't, Sharon.
Domino's is out with its pizza meter, their annual survey. Their Domino's drivers say that nude customers are up 23% over last year, whatever that means. They say they haven't seen this many naked pizza eaters since the 1980s. Also, as far as tipping, nice car in the driveway doesn't mean anything. A survey says owners of a Lexus are the cheapest tippers, and Taurus owners tip the best. And that televised O.J. Simpson chase goes down in the Pizza Hall of Fame. Says the company says that hour that he was on the road was the single greatest hour for pizza delivery in national pizza history.
Better than the Super Bowl?
Yep.
I couldn't tear myself away to pick up the phone to order a pizza.
Yep.
Besides, I didn't think we'd go on long enough for, you know, in time for the pizza to get there.
Even better than when there's something going on at the White House, you know? And that's what they say. They always order pizzas when something big's going on.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So the pizza orders at the White House went up during the O.J. Simpson chase. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they went up all over the place, all over the country.
Even at the White House?
Probably.
Yeah. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. Let's go to Largo. Hi, Largo. You're on the air at WSUN. Hello there, Largo. Your turn at WSUN, Largo.
Hey, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Listen, I think that the church has always been someone who's tried to explain God. They never really do a very good job to begin with. And tell me if you agree with this, but it seems to me that the church has always tried to tell us what to think about God. The only person who knows what God thinks is God. I mean, how can we, 2,000 years after the fact that, God walked the earth, tell us what to believe? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
And the second point that I had was the people that ring the little bells outside the Kmart's and the Targets and this thing and that thing. They anger me because they're telling me that maybe I have not worked hard enough for my money.
Has nothing to do at all, sir, with what I'm talking about today. I'm really sorry that you're too stingy to give to the Salvation Army. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and hell, even I give to the Salvation Army, for God's sake. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and Hillsborough, 221 WSUN. Let's go to Bradenton. Hi, Bradenton. You're on the air at WSUN.
Yeah, Mr. Lassiter.
Yes.
Listen, you said on the air the other day and many other times to talk about you don't believe in anything that's incomprehensible. Is that correct? Yet you're going to sit in the...
Sir, how can I believe in something I can't comprehend?
No, I meant to say that. You believe...
How can anyone believe in something they cannot comprehend?
Excuse me, sir. You say on the air that you don't like to talk about things that's incomprehensible, that anything that doesn't have any...
Sir, don't tell me what I say on the air. What is your point?
Well, your point is why you have a whole hour of a monologue on a subject that you totally...
Because I'm fascinating, sir. I have a fascinating mind and a fascinating view of things. That's why.
Well, you said...
That's why I've got the show and you don't. You're not fascinating. Let's go to Kenneth City. Hi, Kenneth. You're on the air at WSUN.
I would ask the question, how do you know, how does anybody know what they know about God? Because there's a whole lot of people coming up with all kinds of things and saying all kinds of things about God and about the Bible and about religion, about Christianity, about this and about that. And how do they know? Where are they getting their information from?
They get it from people who are in the God business, sir.
Now, what is the God business?
The church.
I heard somebody else talking about, well, the church said this, the church said that. Which church? Roman Catholic Church? The Protestant Church?
They all, in essence, say the same thing, sir. They have relatively minor differences.
I'm not in one of the... I'm in a different church, okay? It's a Christian church, but to use the label Christian creates a lot of confusion because a lot of people don't understand what Christianity is.
Oh. Well, actually, sir, none of the Christians who belong to any other church other than the one that the current Christian that we're talking to goes to the right one.
Yeah, because, you know, if you don't have a source material, if there's something that you're basing it on and you don't know what it is, you're in a lot of at least philosophical trouble.
What are you saying, sir?
Well, I'm talking about frame of reference. You know, you have to address what is your frame of reference.
What is your frame of reference, sir?
My frame of reference is, it can't be described in 5 words or in one phone call, but it's...
Try.
Biblically based.
Someone else's frame of reference that you have bought. I see.
It's a matter of gathering evidence and making conclusions based on evidence and coming from a realist frame.
What evidence, sir?
The evidence of, well, in my case, of the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that as a starting
What evidence is there of a resurrection?
For that, you'd have to go to my pastor, you know, Dr. Gene Scott.
Oh, hearsay.
That's not hearsay. You might say it's he-say, because, you know, all history is, you know, called his story.
Or so-so saxophone playing. 576 WSUN in Pinellas and Hillsborough, or 221 WSUN. All other areas toll-free, 1-800-356-WSUN.
What did
I miss Dr. Gene Scott.
What did Muffy think of your new toy last night, by the way?
I didn't take it home. I didn't tell her about it.
You did?
I have enough trouble with her.
I thought surely that you would be pestering her to death with it all evening. Disappointed.
I don't trouble my wife with the things that I trouble you people.